All right, 1 second here. All right, so welcome everyone to this Q&A. Again, I want to welcome everyone to this Q&A. A few questions came in. One, a bunch of questions here. We'll see how many we get through. First question's like this: that somebody lent their credit card, or they loaned them, or let's say it's a loan, or gave them a loan, let's say. And they allow another person or business to use the account. So let's say they let someone, let someone use the credit card, let someone use their account, whatever it is. And then they decide they want to forgive. They want to forgive the amount they charged. In other words, they either lend money or lend the credit card, whatever it is, in order to charge money, and they forgave it. In other words, they said they don't have to pay it back. Now the question is the business or person who made the charges forgiven from the debts? Or in other words, the person who's forgiven from the debts that the money was originally lent to, does he not take responsibility for the other person's part of the debt? Right? In other words, Reuven allows Shimon to use his credit card. Right now, Shimon has to pay. Right? He's obligated to pay whatever he charged. Now Reuven says, I'm going to forgive it. I'm going to forgive that debt. You don't have to worry about paying it back. In other words, Reuven gets the credit card bill, so he'll pay it. He'll end up paying it. Now the question is that the money originally lent, the person who lent the money, person who got the money, do they take responsibility for the other person's part of the debt? In other words, the business or the person who made the charges forgave him, right? So does the other person take responsibility for that? What's the answer? No. Why not? Why not over here? Again, Reuven lends his credit card to Shimon for business, for a loan, whatever it is. Let's say for business, we'll make it easy. A business transaction. And then Reuven says Shimon don't have to pay it back. Shimon's not obligated to pay it back. So now, when the bill comes, let's say he gave him his credit card, his business card, whatever. In order for him to use it however he wants. So let's say he did it for business. Again, we'll make it simple here. He did it for business. So now, he forgives the loan. He forgives the amount. Reuven's going to pay it. Right? He's going to pay the vendor, whoever it is. So the question is, the money that was originally lent, is that taking responsibility for the other party's portion of the debt? So let's make clear. The fact that Reuven allows Shimon to use his card for business, and then he forgoes the debt, right? Who takes responsibility for the debt? Reuven does, because he's the one paying it. In other words, whoever this vendor is, whatever they bought, whatever Shimon bought Whose responsibility is it to pay it? Really, it's Shimon's. But who's going to end up paying it? Reuven. Why does Reuven agree to pay it? I don't know. He's in a good mood, right? Things are going well. He foregoes the amount Shimon has to pay, right? So he takes responsibility for the whole thing, right? So the person who the money was originally lent, he doesn't take responsibility. He's the one who used the money. Very good. He paid the vendor for whatever he needed, for whatever it was. But it's not like he takes responsibility. He didn't take responsibility. Why would I think he takes responsibility? He only takes responsibility if he pays back Reuven. If he doesn't pay back Reuven, or Reuven foregoes the cost, Reuven doesn't care if he pays him back or not. Or let's say better, Reuven doesn't want him to pay him back. He's willing to give it to him for free. So who's got the responsibility? Reuven does. Why should Shimon have the responsibility? The reality is, if anything goes wrong, let's say Shimon buys a product. He buys the product, and the product is fault. There's a problem. Now, who bought it? Shimon bought it. You're not going to go to Reuven and say, get my money back. He's the one who bought it, regardless if he paid for it or not. Regardless of whose money he paid for it. So Shimon got an obligation to go after the vendor. He would have an obligation. He'd go back to the vendor and say, listen, you sold me a bag of bones. You sold me something that wasn't worth the value, whatever the case is. That's not Reuven's responsibility. Reuven's the one really paying it. Reuven's the one in charge of it here. True, but he didn't buy it. Right? I see that's where the question comes up. Reuven didn't buy it, so who's got responsibility? Really, Reuven paid for it, but Shimon's got responsibility if anything happens. He's going to be backed up by Reuven. Right? So, in order to make it clear, even if something goes wrong, Shimon is going to go back to the vendor, not Reuven. Doesn't matter if Reuven paid for it. Now, in the bigger scheme of things, could Reuven go back to the vendor? He could. Why not? He could go back to the vendor. He paid for it. Right? But who was the deal made between? Right? That's the question. Who was the deal made between? The deal was made between Shimon and the vendor, whoever that vendor is. Whoever he bought, whatever he bought, whoever he bought it from. So if there's a problem, who's going after the vendor? Shimon. Does it matter that Reuven paid for it? No. Doesn't matter. Right? Shimon has responsibility over if anything goes wrong. The fact that Reuven says, I'm going to forego the amount you owe me. So the question is, does he shirk off all responsibility? And the reality is, even if he paid, right, it's an interesting question here. He's the one who paid it, but he's not getting benefit from it. It's not his thing. I mean, technically it could be, but it's not really his. It belongs to Shimon. So whatever Shimon's using it for, very good. There's no now connection to Reuven, even though Reuven paid for it. Now, Reuven says, you don't have to pay me back. He's going to forego that money. Okay? So he foregoes the money. The question is, does that mean he has no responsibility? Seemingly he's got no responsibility here. Because if there's a problem, let's say there are two Jews involved. If there's a problem, who's going to rabbinical court? Who's going to Beis Din? Shimon and the vendor. And nothing to do with Reuven. Reuven didn't buy it. Reuven gave him the money, but he's not the owner. He's not the owner. And even if Shimon would pay it back, he's still not the owner. The fact that Reuven said you don't have to pay it back doesn't make him the owner. Shimon's the one who bought it. Right? Who made the acquisition? Shimon. Reuven didn't make any acquisition. Doesn't matter if he gave the money. He's not making the acquisition. So the answer is, if he didn't make the acquisition, then he's got no say over you. Yeah, he's not going to come to court and say, hey, I gave Shimon the money, and Shimon says you gave him something false. Right? This company, whoever it is going to say, who are you? Well, what connection did you have? You say, I gave, right? He says, I gave Shimon the money. They're going to say, but I don't have any dealings with you. That's what the court will tell him. You have no connection here. No matter if you gave him the money. You gave the money for Shimon. Fine. He bought when he bought. What does that have to do with you now? You gave him the money, okay? I mean, we're not talking about where he gives the money and buys drugs or other things or whatever. You're buying something for his business, whatever it is. The question would be, if he forgoes the amount to be paid back, who's the owner? And the owner is Shimon. Even if he paid it back, he's still the owner. Why? He's the one who made the acquisition. Now, if you tell me he made an acquisition on condition that it really belongs to Reuven, different issue. That's a totally different issue. But the case is he didn't. He made his own acquisition. It's just that Reuven funded it. So if Reuven funded it, game over. Reuven has no connection anymore. And even if there be a problem between Shimon and the vendor, who's going to base then? Shimon. Reuven has no connection. No connection. That's how I would answer that. Someone asks a few questions here. Somebody asks, Rabbi Chaim Coffman sect the same as yours? Yep. Ultra Orthodox. Same sect. There are different gradations with it. There are Hasidim, there are Sephardic people, but he's Ashkenazi, right? He was Ashkenazi, Ultra Orthodox. I'm the same. Someone asks, is it true a convert has a hard time finding a shidduch? Yeah, could very well be. Finding a match for a convert or a Noahide, I would say, is even harder. Not so many people know Noahides today. I think it'd be much harder. But, for a convert, it can be hard. I'm not saying it has to be. But I know a number of people that went through the process converting, got married. So it's definitely not impossible. Is it difficult? Can be. Very well could be. Because who they're going to marry? It's someone who we call an FFB, someone who's from birth. Are they going to marry a convert? Probably not. Right? I'm not going to say across the board. They have to be a little more open. Right? But either they're going to marry someone, let's say about tshuva, he's not going to care. Someone returning to Judaism, someone born as a Jew. Or maybe they'll marry a potential, another convert. Could be. It's not always converts marry each other. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be so simple. Right? Not going to say it's an easy process. Some people, it's easier than others. Other people have a hard time. Right? Again, I'm not saying it has to be so incredibly hard. Right? But it's, it's not going to be so easy. So you got to say, come on. Aren't we full-fledged Jews? Aren't we like everybody else? And in theory, you are to a point. To a point. Listen, there are plenty of people who would marry into my family. Good. I wouldn't want them anyway. So, all right, parents aren't religious. Into marriage all over the place. This, that. Okay? You'll find people of similar backgrounds. Right? So all my kids married similar backgrounds. Right, the last daughter just got married. Both parents are B'nai Tshuva, returning to Judaism. Both have college degrees, went to Ivy League schools. Well, actually, one has a college degree, one didn't finish. Right? But they're returning to Judaism. My daughter before that, same thing. Same thing. Both parents are returning to Judaism. I mean, my oldest daughter, similar. They marry into similar families. Now, does that mean I wouldn't necessarily, my kids wouldn't necessarily marry into a family that's religious from birth? Not necessarily. Right? But there will be people that will say, it's great work what you do, unbelievable. But my kids will never marry into your family. Okay. You can say, is that discrimination? Could be, but there's reality. There's reality. Some people will say, give an example. There are some people who will say that, if they don't have 3 generations that practice family purity laws, marriage laws, they won't even, they won't marry into such a family. So I heard a great rabbi in America say a while ago, that doesn't mean anything. Because maybe someone is born from such a union and the mother was really neat, never went to the mikveh. Could be. Right? But I've heard many great rabbis say that doesn't matter. If the person's going in the right direction, it's fine. If that child is going in the right direction, it doesn't matter. If the mother never went to the mikveh or not. Totally throw it out. Doesn't mean anything. Now, but some people are stringent on that. Okay. So they're not going to marry into my family. Fine. We wouldn't want them anyway. So you're going to say, well, isn't that sad? Isn't that discrimination? Look what you've done and look what your family's done. And this is true. You know what? At the end of the day, this is reality. What people feel comfortable with, don't feel comfortable with. And in the end, you know what? So they won't marry into my family. So my kids are married into nice families, beautiful families. And the families are meshed. Not so easy. Right? Because they say, if you get along with the other side, it's also a blessing. People told me this years ago. It's not a given. You have different backgrounds and way of doing things. Right? If both sides get along, it's a bonus. My kids, thank God, they got great families. And the families are meshed. They get together, the kids see each other. That's a beautiful thing. So like I always say, when it works, when Torah works, it goes absolutely out of Shemaim. Goes all the way to heaven. When a person doesn't do what they're supposed to do, we go all the way back to the bottom. Nothing in between. Nothing in between. So, that's what it is. And people will say, come on, doesn't that upset you? Again, if the families, if they don't match up, so to speak, and it's not a good fit, then you don't do it. Because then your kid won't fit in. Even if they like each other, they won't fit in. And it happens. It can happen to the best of families. But you have to see the family dynamics. That's why you look into it quite a bit. If their siblings are married, who they're married to, where they learn, what are they doing? You also have to see the bigger picture. It's not just, wow, is there an attraction between the two? You got to see the bigger picture before they go out. Are the families going to match up? Is it a good mix? Right. So again, I don't know what statistics are, but it doesn't always work out. I'm not saying about divorce, just saying about a kid, feeling uncomfortable, in their spouse's family, with their spouse's family. So it can happen. Let's say one family grew up very poor, one, more well-to-do. So, what they do and et cetera is based on how much money they have, et cetera. So yeah, there can be differences. Some may be very stingy with money because they never had money. Others, may spend more because they had more. So yeah, where people grow up, that's why marriage in the Orthodox community is such a miracle. Why? Because, people grow up, they go through different things, families go through different things. There's certain customs, what they do at the Shabbos table, certain songs they sing, certain words of Torah they say, other thing, whatever it is. Not everyone's the same. Definitely not everyone's the same. So that takes time to get used to. As well, at the same time, not everybody's the same. Siblings may be very different. So how do you know they're going to interact well? So you have to see the bigger picture. And if the bigger picture looks good, and the families are similar backgrounds, okay, then you let them go out and see. Let's see what their backgrounds are. Do they fit the criteria what the person's looking for? Most important thing, are they attracted to each other? It's also important. But at the same time, there's a lot more that goes into it. That's why it's such a miracle. You're gonna have people grow up, opposite ends of the world, and end up together. God puts them together. You can go through all kinds of different things, and then someone comes along your path and you say, yeah, I have somebody for that, this person, whatever. My third daughter got married. So my oldest daughter started a learning group for girls that, let's say, maybe difficulty in Emunah, belief in God. She brought in great speakers. And I started her own seminary. So one of the speakers she had was a rabbi from Torah. And, he taught there for many, many years. And before he spoke, he asked my daughter, he said, well, maybe you have someone for my son. He's a little bit out of the box, but very serious. And he says, so my daughter says, well, tell me about him. So he started, telling him what he's done and this and that. After my daughter hears that, my daughter says, I got the perfect one. I got the perfect one. Who's that? My sister. So we knew the family. I mean, not so well, but, we knew the family. So we looked into it a little more. Let them go out. That was it. By my son-in-law, he dated a few people and everyone passed the first date. After the third date, I told my wife, that's it. Get ready to make a vort. Get ready to make an engagement. It's over. It's over. Right. But, that's what happened. Now, my oldest daughter, didn't have the easiest time, growing up for different reasons, went through whatever she went through. But because of what she went through and what she started and what she did, this rabbi came and spoke and she made a match for her sister. Now, what are the odds of that? Pretty slim, if not zero. Very, very slim. But again, you have to see, she went through this, she went through that. We, changed countries. We lived in a different place than I used to live before in Israel. Right? The chances of that with everything she went through and started this program and this, and that rabbi came and spoke, a number of times. And then he asked the question, do you have anyone for my son? And so what are the odds? The odds are very slim. Very, very slim. So people will say, and it's very true, when it comes to making a match, in general, it's a miracle. I don't think there's any question. I mean, I met my wife. She wasn't looking, to get married. And even though, we met and, had similar backgrounds and different things, right? I was convinced beyond the shadow of a doubt. There's no question when I came to Israel, and I wasn't going back to the States. I had no intention to go back. When I came to Israel, I had no intention whatsoever to marry someone who's American. Never. I figured for sure I'm going to marry someone Israeli, etc. But God has his ways. There's a whole story how my wife got to Israel, and she wasn't even supposed to get here, and it was like a last minute thing. And as we say, the rest is history. And how we met also. Right? We met up north. Went up north in Sfaz. And whatever, she wasn't really supposed to be there. And she went with a friend, whatever, the whole story. It was a whole story. And then we met. So like the odds of all these different things happening, and what the end result was are pretty slim. You can say, well, it's an interesting coincidence. Okay. It's an interesting coincidence, but you know what? I'm going to say it's a miracle because that's what it is. Again, where we came from, how we got there, where we're holding, all the things involved. Like, according to nature, we never should have met in general. Just never should have met. But she got up north. God obviously wanted her up north, even though it didn't look like it was supposed to happen, and it happened. Then we met, and we started talking, and 2.5 weeks later, Thanksgiving, football game, halftime, popped the champagne, told family mazel tov. I thought we were nuts. Okay, 30 years later, but God has his ways. Now, you ask my wife, she'll say, she never had intention to get married when she came. She didn't have any intention to date. Different things that she went through, not whatever. Right? So you look at shidduchim, in general, and how people find their matches and different things, it's pretty miraculous. In a lot of ways. People come from totally different backgrounds. I don't say it has to be necessarily similar backgrounds. But whatever, they come to the same conclusion. They go in the same direction. They want the same things. Right? I would say, in general, just while we're on this topic, anybody in this process, whether as a Noahide, well, if you're going to be a Noahide, that might be a different issue. Right? If a person's going to be a Noahide, they have no intention to convert, probably a different issue here. Right? But someone who has the intention to convert, I would say, person should never date till after conversion. First of all, you want to know, even a person is dating, they have to find someone going in the exact direction they're going. They don't have to be exact same level per se, but they have to be going in the same direction. Right? If you're not going in the same direction, there's a moot point. Then either you don't convert, right, or you go your separate ways. But it's, I would say it's not a good thing to do. It's only better not to date. If a person already is dating somebody, okay, right? But if they haven't started dating yet, they shouldn't till after. It's just more complicated. Especially if someone's with a Jew, that's even worse. If they're married, okay, it's a different issue. But if they're not married, right, a Jew and a non-Jew, Basin's gonna say, what's going on here? You're probably doing it for marriage. Basin's gonna, want you to be separate. Basin's gonna want you not to have any contact, one with the other, till after conversion. So in many ways, it doesn't make any sense to date till after conversion. Now, someone can say, I met somebody, I want to meet someone, I'm not going to listen to you, that's what I want to do, okay? You're taking chances. Because even someone says, yeah, they're going in the right direction, this, that, they could flake out also. You don't know 100%. You can say, well, I don't know myself 100% if I'm going to do this. Could be. So I take the chance. I wouldn't take the chance necessarily. If a person knows 100% nothing's going to change, this is what they're going to do, whatever, fine. So if a person met a non-Jew, a lot easier. A heck of a lot easier. Why? Because you're both non-Jews. If someone met a Jew in their dating, that's more of a problem. Much more of a problem. Major red flag. Why is it a major red flag? Because the basis is going to say you're doing it for marriage. So a person's going to have to convince the rabbinical court beyond the shadow of a doubt they're doing it no matter what. In other words, if this person, if their significant other, their Jewish significant other would get hit by a bus or get corona or whatever and die, that doesn't matter. They're going to convert anyway. Now, if someone's already been in the process for a very long time before they met somebody, it's okay. Right? That's probably a moot point. But Basin's going to want to ascertain, and they're going to want to know 100% you're in it because you believe it's the real deal. And you'll do whatever it takes to get to the other side. Right? Otherwise, what are they going to say? Otherwise, they're going to say, oh, he's doing it for marriage. When you do it for marriage, right? Shulchan Aruch, Code of Jewish Law says, can't do it. Forbidden. You cannot convert under any circumstances for ulterior motives. No ulterior motives. So I would say, dating is you're playing with fire in a certain way. I would say finish the conversion. You're 100% a Jew. Everything's good. Then go look for a spouse. But until that point, my professional opinion, for what it's worth, is it shouldn't be done because you don't know. And what happens? The mind goes berserk over here. Well, I guess now a person's in love. They could very well be. But if you're not going in the right direction, I know of a story. I don't know, the details per se. Story of someone, married, happily married. That's the way it sounds anyway. Happily married. And, they very much wanted to convert. Very much wanted to convert. The other spouse didn't. So what did they do? They converted anyway. They divorced their spouse. Now, the person admitted on themselves. They said they're very happy that they're Jewish. They're extremely happy that they're Jewish. But they paid a very serious price. And the price they paid is they gave up their spouse. That's the price. And they said they have remorse. They don't have remorse, they converted. They have remorse. What happened? Now, a person can say, it's in my bones. I can't go back. All these other things. Can never go back, okay? Right? Not everyone's made to convert. Even if someone accepted by a rabbinical court, less than 20% finish the process. So it's not the end all, I would say. And unless there's something bad in the marriage, I would never, ever tell people to get divorced. Unless there are other issues. If there are other issues, okay. I've had a few cases like that. There were other issues, they're going to divorce anyway, okay. But to say this is the most important thing, and I'm going to tell my spouse to go take a hike, and that's what is going to happen, I don't think it's so healthy. I think most people would say it's not healthy. I understand the burning desire to convert, okay? Now I don't want to be an Ohio. I don't want to stay in Ohio. I want more. But I can tell you, even if a person stays in Ohio, I can keep you busy for the next 250 years. Plenty what to learn, plenty what to do. I understand it's a burning desire. Right now, as a Noahide, someone asked, so what do you do about shidduch? How do you date? So someone actually contacted me a while ago that they have a database for Noahides. A database for Noahides who want to get married. It's a good thing. It's a good initiative. Because how are you going to find someone like-minded? That's not so simple. And what would happen, let's say, there are many cases like this. What would happen if a Noahide marries a Christian, is married to a Christian, right? I know a number of cases like this. Right? That somebody, whatever, a number of people, Noahides, married to Christian. Now, if you have kids, that's going to be a problem. How are you going to educate them? You're going to have some sort of mutual agreement somehow. But there has to be some somewhat mutual respect. If there don't have mutual respect and the other person's belittling, one person's belittling the other, it's going to be a problem. I know somebody, whatever, that happened to. And the spouse, real Bible thumpers, family real Bible thumpers, and the spouse got demolished all the time. Demolished, made fun of, etc. But eventually, that's a dangerous situation. Because there you're trampling on something that's important to the other person. You can agree to disagree, right? But that's going to create other problems, a lot of other problems. Now, in this case, what happened? The other spouse came along. Eventually, they came around and saw what Christianity was. as we would say, a bunch of bunk, right? So they can't, but the person suffered. The person went through a lot of suffering, and they stuck it out. But there are going to be a number of issues. I don't think there's any question about that. There will be a number of issues. Kids being one of them. If you don't have kids, okay, it's easier. But there has to be mutual respect. If there's not mutual respect, even though that Christian spouse is in big trouble, as a Noahide, and they're going against the Noahide laws and all that, and they're not willing to budge, they're not willing to listen, okay? It's their choice. They make the choice. The reality is, both have to live with it. If there's mutual respect, it can survive. It could even flourish. If there's not mutual respect, I'm not going to say they're going to end up getting divorced. Going to be a lot of rocky moments. It's unfortunate. I understand people will say, come on, it's part of me. So much passion. I have a lot of passion. True. 100% true. Okay. That doesn't mean you lash out at your spouse if they're not holding the same way or they're not interested. Can it make life difficult? It can. I'm not going to say not. It certainly can. Is that going to end up where a person gets divorced? Not necessarily. And I don't think it should lead to that. Because if that's the only issue in the marriage, okay, you should work it out somehow. You have to figure out how to work it out. But I wouldn't say it's something to get divorced over. So bottom line, whether it's someone's returning to Judaism, a convert, or a Noahide, you're going to have to meet somebody that thinks the way you do. That's going in the same direction. Now, take my case for an example. My wife wasn't, exactly 100% religious at that point. So my wife always says, you took a risk, right? I took a risk. But at the end, I saw where she was going. I thought it was only a matter of time. And I was right. I could have been wrong. 100% could have been wrong. But in the end, it worked out. So, we had similar backgrounds. Well, a lot of similar things. A lot of similar dislikes. I mean, whatever. So a person has to be, in a community where people think the way you do. Not everyone's going to do that, but you live in a community that, people are going in the same direction. It's a huge thing. Huge. Some more, some less, whatever it is, but that's a huge thing. That cannot be underestimated. We spoke about community before. Community is crucial. Crucial. So you're going to hang around and speak to people that are like-minded. Because if they're not like-minded, why are you wasting your time? See, we're not that open-minded. We don't have to be that open-minded. Right. I had somebody tell me, and I'll tell you what the answer is because, I was on the spot. I didn't have a good answer. But they asked me, they said, do you ever speak to secular Jews? Do you hang out with secular Jews? Oh, sorry. No, that wasn't the question. Do any secular Jews live in your community? That was the question. And the answer was no. I mean, there's some that are less religious, let's say. But for the vast majority, we're all the same. Some more, some less, but we're all the same. So they think, see, you're not open-minded at all. You don't even have secular Jews live with you. So what should have been my answer? If anyone gets this question, what's the answer? See, you don't have to even answer the question. We're very good at answering with another question. And that question is, you're asking me, how many, secular Jews live in my community? So let me ask you, how many Orthodox Jews you hang out with? How many Orthodox Jews live in your community? Think you're so open-minded. End of discussion, checkmate. That's the answer. Because they're going to sit there and try and nail you and say, see, you don't secular people hang out with, you're so close-minded. Really? Let me see how many Orthodox Jews you hang out with. You go out to dinner with. You socialize with. People that I would call Orthodox. Nobody. But you're supposed to be so open-minded. You're going to knock me because no secular people want to live here. You know why? Because when an Orthodox Jew moves in the secular community, secular Jews go bananas. Oh, they're going to make us have a Shabbos elevator. They're going to make us cover our hair. This, that. Religious coercion. But they would never think of living in a religious community. That's if a religious Jew moves into a secular community. But they would never consider living in a religious community. Why not? Very simple. Because they have an aversion to holiness. Right? That's the question. This week's parsha for everyone outside of Israel. I haven't made my video yet on the parsha. I hope to do it later. Right? Bilam, Mr. Bilam himself, wants to curse the Jewish people. Right? Balak wants him to curse the Jewish people. Right? So says Marty Rebbe, oh, they're going to Moshe, this should be well. So he says like this. He says, why should Balak want him to curse? Why doesn't Balak want a blessing? Tell Balaam to give him a blessing. He's got power to give a blessing. He's got unbelievable power over here. Get a blessing. Why go after the curse? You know why he goes after the curse? So the Rebbe says, Balaam, what is the one thing he hates more than anything else? Holiness. And he hates the Jewish people for their holiness. So the holiness is so strong he can't stand it. It's like a stench. Makes him want to vomit. He can't take it. So he says, I don't want the holiness. I don't want the blessing for holiness over here. I want the curse. And I want to curse the Jewish people because I can't stand the stench of holiness. Because now, as Hitler Yamach Shemoy V'Zichroi, may they be blotted out, may rot. What did he say about the Jews? We're the conscience of the world. Right? We brought morality to the world. We're the conscience of the world. He's right. 100%. 100%. So Bilam said the same thing. They brought morality to the world. Can't stand morality. How does he get them to sin in the end? If you look at the end of the parsha with the women of Midian. And how many Jews, unfortunately, get killed? 24,000. Comes along Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. And he skewed them like a shish kebab. And he killed them. 2 people doing the jitterbug in public. We'll keep it clean here. But you can't stand holiness. Why do you think in Israel the secular hate the religious so much? Not because we're in the government. We want all this money for our schools. I mean, it's also part of it. They don't want they can't stand the stench of holiness. They don't want to hear about holiness. You stay in your own communities. We don't want any part of you. We'll stay in our own communities. Because the holiness to them stinks to high heaven. They don't want it. That's exactly what Bilam said. What, I should give a blessing to Balak? No. Jewish people can't stand because of their moral upkeep. Because of the morality they keep. Makes me sick, says Bilam. I'm not going to curse the Jewish people. I'm not going to bless Balak over here. I'm going to curse the Jewish people because they make me want to puke. So says Bill Marosh. right? So that's the answer. They won't have anything to do with us? Absolutely not. The only thing they want to have to do with us is to make us more like them. And that's the whole controversy, of us Orthodox people going into the army, and the secular Jews are going to say, come on, you have to share the burden. Why should my son, go there and potentially die, blah, blah, blah. True. But what do they want? What do they really want? What does the army want? You know what the army wants? They want to take these ultra-religious Jews. I mean, if they're going to the army, we're not going to say they're the highest level of being religious here, per se. Even though some people went in the army and came out even stronger religiously. Okay. What do they want? They want to make us like them. That's what they want. There are a lot of proofs to it. It's not the point for now. But that's what they want. So as my Rebbe would say, that's what you want? We're not going to give you one. Not one. And we're going to fight not to give you one because of what you want to do to us. So we have to keep our distance. That's why we keep our distance. You're going to say, but, secular people are not so bad. Some of them have good character traits. Could be. Ovos disagrees. Says in Duties of the Heart, speaking about this for weeks, doing a cheshbon and nefesh, taking stock of your life. He's telling you certain people not to hang out with. People will slander, people will scoff, people will make oaths. People are gaiva, they're conceited. Got a whole laundry list. People don't have fear of heaven. It's a long laundry list over here. Now, some people say, well, some of these people aren't so bad. In the bigger scheme of things, maybe they're not so bad compared to others. But you know what? Without a Torah, they're no different. They speak Lashon, they're conceited, whatever. The list goes on. The list goes on. Even to say, well, the person's a nice guy. But what does that mean? In God's eyes, is he a nice guy? And that's all we care about. Does he desecrate Shabbos in public? Yes. Does he speak Lashon Hara whenever he wants? Yes. Does he eat kosher? No. Keep Shabbos? No. I mean, the list goes on. I don't have to be picky over here. Some people are going to be more, some people are going to be less. They're all in the same pot. They're no different. They'll say, what would be the statement here? Live and let live. Why can't we live and let live? Because we believe in the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts. People don't want to hear the truth. They'd rather have fantasy. You can't tell me what to do. I have my own route. Okay. I was talking to someone on the bus going up north. Talking to a 16-year-old kid, religious Zionist, whatever. Whole interesting discussion. So, whatever, we had one of these discussions. And I said, imagine someone says I'm an atheist. I'm not agnostic, I'm an atheist. Like, that means 100% God doesn't exist. An atheist, very good. Well, have you ever studied? Have you ever learned philosophy? No. Have you ever studied, Socrates, Aristotle? No. Have you ever studied medieval philosophy? Kant, Kierkegaard? No. Jewish philosophy, L'Avdil, Yudah Levi, wrote the Kuzari. The Rambam? No. You read the Bible from cover to cover? A little bit. I saw the movie. How can you be an atheist? You're an idiot. You never learned anything. But, people talk, and they talk like they know something. So Coffman always says, you read a Wikipedia article on physics. I'm going to knock off Stephen Hawking. Going to knock him off. Come on, are you serious? Like the number one physicist in the world. You're going to knock him off because you read one article. You're going to knock off a doctor because, you got some medical knowledge you don't think they know about. Maybe they don't. Doesn't matter. Chutzpah. My opinion is just as valid. Did you ever learn anything? Doesn't matter. I love that argument. My opinion is just as valid. Who says? I got a PhD in Judaism. Pilot higher and deeper, or Papa has dough. I've been learning for 25, 30 years. Plenty of things you'll catch me on, right? You're going to argue with a PhD? Nobody would. Nobody would. Any topic. Physics, mathematics, English literature, whatever. Those got a PhD in their field. You're going to argue with them? No, but I'm confident. I know I'm an atheist. The joke. But then we say certain things or to, get under our skin. So to speak. So yeah, we're not open-minded. We don't need to be open-minded. They're not open-minded either. Right? Go ask a Democrat if he's open-minded. They won't even let you talk. They won't even let you get out an opinion. Because it's my way or the highway. It's like you're nothing. So people talk at each other, not to each other. But we're not going to get into politics. Even though Mr. Biden is here now. Creating traffic upheavals and all that. But back to my point. The point is, you're going to marry someone of, same, not necessarily same background. Doesn't necessarily be same background, but they'll be going in the same direction. 100% you have to be going in the same direction. And if you're not going in the same direction, you're playing with fire. And again, if you don't care, so then it doesn't mean you have to convert. There's plenty of what to do as a Noahide, as I always say. Plenty of what to do. You can say, well, even after I finish, who says there's a guarantee? Even with this person, you're right. You don't know. People go sour also after the fact. Thank God my students haven't. But there are converts that they go sour after. A year later, 2 years later, 5 years later, they have difficulty in different things. I know a family came to Israel, totally messed them up. Totally messed them up. I wouldn't have told them to come here. And then they try to go to a more religious community. And they killed themselves spiritually. And now, not even going to say what's going on with them. Horrific. But they're true converts. Right? They did what they were supposed to do. And beyond, and they got messed up. It can happen. Definitely can happen. So you're going to say, what's the guarantee we have in life? Two things. Death and taxes. Not necessarily in that order. Those are the two guarantees we have. So you're going to say, well, if I don't know for sure, how could I ever meet someone or whatever? Okay. You got to go on probability also. You have to see. I'm not going to say just because a person met someone that's, that person's going to go off and whatever. Go off the deep end after conversion. Doesn't mean that. But I will say one thing. It doesn't matter. A person converts or doesn't. If a person's married and you go through difficulty, and the marriage isn't strong, the marriage will finish. Right? If there's a trauma or, other things. Unless the two are in it 100% together. So yeah, same goals. Doesn't mean, certainly men and women don't think the same. Right? Similar backgrounds help. Right? But you go in the same direction. So yeah, you can say we can overcome everything. It doesn't make it easy. Right? There are a lot of how do marriages dissolve in general? Just speak about this. What's probably one of the main factors that marriage can have problems? Money. Even more than infidelity. Infidelity, also an issue. Right? But if you look at the, top 10 causes of divorce, infidelity is not in the top 5, which to me, I was a little bit shocked. But usually things get exasperated in a marriage when there are money issues. And then, everything gets, explodes based on that. Now, if there weren't any, let's say money wasn't necessarily an issue. So in general, marriage should survive. Should. They're going in the right direction. They speak to one another. There's respect, etc. There are a lot of factors that make a good marriage. A lot of factors. But, we can forget also and go on autopilot. And then the more years go by, there's nothing there. Maybe the only thing you have in common are your kids. if you have kids. And that certainly can ruin a marriage. Because the people going in different directions, that's bad. That'll end the marriage. Marriage is something you got to work on. Right? It's like a flower. You water it, give enough sunlight, it'll blossom. You don't, it'll die. Everyone can try this. Right? Take a plant, don't water, it'll die. Give it all the sunlight in the world, it'll die. No matter how long the person's been married for. It's something that always has to be worked on. You say, well, sometimes better, sometimes not, this, that. Okay, it has to be worked on. But what's something that exasperates is money. Big factor, big factor. I'll say it's the only factor. But the less you have in common, the worse it is. It doesn't mean you have to have the same hobbies. You're not necessarily going to have the same hobbies. But guess what? You got to do things together when you can't be physical. It's not the only thing. And if it's only about physicality, the person will lose interest after a while. Won't last. So there have to be other things involved. The person has to know how to talk to their spouse when they can't touch them. When they can't be close. Right? It's for all the men out there. And so it's harder. But you have to, a person has to look at their spouse like a person, not just an object. So, again, whether it's a Noahide, it's a Jew, it's a convert, the person that they should want to be interested in are someone who thinks the same. In other words, they believe in the same things. They're going in the same direction. Regardless if one is ahead of the other, I don't think that really matters. The other one can catch up. But as long as they're going in that same direction, they have that same desire. If not, you're running into trouble already at the beginning. And I'm not even talking about compatibility. Compatibility is a whole nother issue. Bad character traits, other things, that's a whole nother separate issue. The first thing is they have to get along, and be going in the right direction. That's the first thing. 100% that's the first thing. After that, you take other things into consideration. But, if there's no attraction, the person has to be attracted, no question. But at the same time, there have to be other things there as well. So, there's a difference. As Rabbi Noah Weinberg, of blessed memory, would say, there's a difference between love and infatuation. Infatuation goes at the person's desire. It's make-believe. It's not real. We're going to say if a person can't touch whatever before, right? So, how can they love each other? So love comes later. Right? It's backwards of what people think, what the secular world thinks. Anyone, and all that physicality gets in the way. Just go back to the 1980s, watch the movie When Harry Met Sally. Men and women cannot be friends. It just doesn't work. One wants more than the other, usually, or both. Doesn't matter, but it doesn't usually stay the same. We're just friends. It usually doesn't work out that way. But that being the case, again, what are my goals? Where am I going? What's most important to me? And that you have to find a spouse that has similar goals. Again, does that mean 100% they think like you? No, doesn't necessarily mean that. They solve problems differently. They do other things differently, right? Men and women are very different. Very, very different. True. But, I would say like this, if, regardless if they have similar backgrounds or not, but if they're going in the same direction, they want to go in the same direction. So, that's worth a lot. Then you have to see, okay, are they compatible? You look at character traits, right? One of the things that they say, whatever, there's a certain protocol, in dating amongst Orthodox Jews, like, first date, you do this, second date, whatever, you don't go out to eat on the first date, right? Why? First of all, you're getting to know each other and whatever, like, and for sure, even if you go out to eat, you don't order like chicken wings or something, right? So then, get your hands all dirty, whatever, that could just ruin a marriage right there. A woman asked the rabbi once, asked the great rabbi once, says, I'm dating this guy, we get along very well, but, how important, how important is it that I should be stringent, on their manners, how they keep themselves, whatever, right? How important is that? Right? So this rabbi's like, he's like, what do you mean? That was it. That was it. But listen, that's also important. A person comes to a date and he looks like a schlump, looks like a schlep in my language, looks unkempt. Like, what do you think a woman's going to think? I'm not saying, you got to put on all this cologne and that, whatever. You got to look respectable. 100%. You got to present yourself in a certain way. But again, there's a lot of talking, a lot of questions to be asked, different things. How'd you handle this? What would you do with this? And that's how it works. So I would say 90% of the time, Orthodox marriages are successful. There are issues today. I'm not going to say no. There are issues today. I think because a lot of secular culture has creeped in the Orthodox community. But, if you look at, secular divorce rate, it doesn't make any sense for a secular person to get married. Doesn't make any sense at all. Because more than 60% of the time, they're going to get divorced. Not only that, if you live together first, then there's a 75%, 80% chance you get divorced. Right? It boggles the mind, but I think the answer is very simple. A person's living together, so, no offense, guy's milking the cow for free. He's got everything for free. All of a sudden, now he got a piece of paper, different issue. More obligation. Can't just, weasel out of it. Can't just walk away. But there's a reason in the secular world that the divorce rate's so high. A, people don't want to work on things. Hard to work on things. And B, it's about infatuation. A lot of it has to do with physicality. It's not about something more meaningful. So that's not going to last. Person get all excited, this and that, at the beginning, but how long is it going to last? A few months, a couple of years. Don't want to say it can last longer. Maybe. Depends how you work at it. Depends what you do. But if, I can say like this, if a person's not going to work on it, just going to do what they're going to do, and, it's all about other things, it's never going to last. Never going to last. Because the person's treating someone like an object. Could be the woman also, treating him like an object, no different. Women, can be aggressive today, even though it's not their nature, but it's out there. 100% it's out there. For women to be more aggressive in different things or whatever. It's a good thing. Right, but the end result we know. The end result we know. So I'd say that it doesn't matter, even if statistics are going up, in the Orthodox world of divorce. We're not even close to 60%. Maybe you tell me it's 10%, maybe. Think that's, even unfortunately that might be high. Even if it's 10%. Think about it. There's a 6 times greater chance in the secular world to get divorced. Intermarriage goes higher than that. Higher than that. Things like 80% chance of divorce or more. Now you can tell me there are people intermarried for 40 years, 50 years. Okay, it can happen. But you come from such different backgrounds, it's only a matter of time, I would think. Unless the Jew is so much like a non-Jew anyway, it doesn't matter. But Anyway, that's what I would say on that. Anyone have any other questions? All right, there are no questions. I'm going to sign out. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Coffman or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email at rabbichaimcoffman@gmail.com, RBBIChaimCoffman @gmail.com.